Okay, so this cheery post is from someone, I don't really know who they are. Let's read what it says. FRC is nothing more than moving through tempoed range of motion with no regard for relative position above or below the area of concern or focus. Okay, I don't even know where to start. So I don't know what tempoed range of motion is. Possibly the person was referring to kin stretch, which is the only place that tempoed range of motion occurs, which is not FRC. So even starting off, the sentence doesn't really make sense as it's written, because we don't do tempoed range of motion, so I don't know what to tell you. But with no regard for relative position above or below the area. Again, I don't know what the person's saying. So when we, for example, are trying to increase internal shoulder rotation, we go at incredible lengths to block and insist that the only thing that is moving is the shoulder. Maybe the person's getting confused into thinking that all we care about is the shoulder and we don't think the shoulder has to play with the rest of the body, which again is just, clearly the person's never taken the system, has no idea what we talk about, but that's blatantly false. Like I said, if we're training the shoulder, we specifically want our shoulder inputs for the glenohumeral joint. At that point, the reason for the training is to increase capacity in the shoulder. Knowing that then the athlete has to use that shoulder with their hip, with their foot, I understand that. Clearly I didn't go to school all this time to be belittled as this person thinks they did. But I also know from study that you can't ask for articular interdependence if you don't have articular independence. So if you have a shitty shoulder, your shitty shoulder is not going to play well with your hip, no matter what movement guru is working with you. It's either your shoulder works or it doesn't. So we specifically are concerned about how the shoulder is working. Let's go to the next part. Any, quote, gain in range of motion is compensatory. Again, that's the exact opposite of what we're doing. What we're doing is we're looking for, when I say move your shoulder and you use a different joint to demonstrate your shoulder, so I say move your shoulder and you start to extend your spine, the fact that we see the compensation is exactly why we try to stop the compensation from happening and concentrate on the shoulder. So any gain in range of motion, it says, is compensatory, which again makes no sense. Then it says something about it's hard to shit on static stretching and justify the use of FRC. The support for either is poor. Let's unpack that for a bit here. Number one, I don't know who shit on static stretching. I always say that if you've read the literature for stretching and you determine that the conclusion is you should never stretch, you either don't know how to read or you don't understand literature, because that's not what the literature says. It says specific things like stretching before activity won't decrease your chances of hurting yourself, but it does not say don't stretch. I don't know where that came from. And another question here about the support for FRC, and this is a bigger question. When somebody says, where's the support for FRC? They're very confused, because what they're saying is, if I type in functional range conditioning in PubMed and press enter, where is the information that tells me exactly what I want to know? I don't know that those people understand research and what research does. Functional range conditioning, we say to ourselves, how do we improve the capacity of that person's shoulder? And then to get the answer, we go into the literature. And in the literature, we learn about things like isometrics, and we learn about things like eccentrics, and we learn about things like active to passive ratios and the importance for capsular space and workspace is now the biggest outcome measure that you see coming out of research. So if we take all that information and we accumulate the research, the way we go about increasing capacity is functional range conditioning, which is only existing because it's describing what we think the research is supposed to be telling us to do. So if anything, when somebody says, where's the research for FRC? I say, what part do you want to know about? We utilize eccentrics a lot at a very specific time. Would you like to know why we do eccentrics at this particular time? Would you like to know why we prescribe them with this frequency, with this tempo? I can answer your questions and I can give you the research to support. We use isometrics a lot. If you ask me why to use isometrics, when to use isometrics, I'm going to give you an answer that is along the laws of human physiology based on the research. So the question, where's the research for FRC? It's like saying, I don't really understand the purpose of research, so let me just throw something out there because I don't see the words in sequence. Anyway, man, whoever wrote that, great post.